G'day and welcome to another edition of the Aussie Ideas Man. This is a different video from me and it's going to be very raw. Don't mind me licking my lips because it's quite warm this early evening here in Brisbane. It's beautiful. It's a beautiful spring day. Things are warming up nicely. At the moment, I'm doing this video because almost nothing is happening with Aptera. And I want to talk about that, but I want to also talk about an idea that occurred many decades ago. It's not mine. I have yet to start talking about my own ideas. Aptera is my source for all things that are silly and a lovely way to learn how to make videos. And that's pretty much all it is for me. If the silly trike ever becomes viable, I'd be happy to buy one. But in my mind, in the 2 years that I have seen this thing, I am more and more convinced that it's a con job. And I think people need to be aware of the possibility of that being the truth. It can only be helpful to anybody. And a lot of effort is being made to suppress anybody who thinks that this might be the case. Well, anyway, this is what I'm going to say. Of late, there have been some pretty useless videos made by pro Aptera video makers. And this is because nothing's happening at the moment. And I mean really nothing. So I'll get into that before I give you the idea. And I hope the idea at least intrigues you. And this idea is actually unrelated to Aptera. People are making videos that are unrelated to Aptera, so I may as well just slip in an idea that I think is worthwhile hearing. Now we start with a video by the Cretin from Aptera Owners Club. Of course, the Cretin is my pet nickname for Steve somebody, who is the owner of a club where there is no club members, or there are no club members. I should at least speak properly myself. When I talk, I can't speak without long pauses because as I talk to a computer screen, I don't think well enough. It's a bad thing, and maybe with practice I can get better at it. And this is why I do this, to hope that one day I can be good at talking to a computer screen, because I hope to do a lot more in my years of retirement. But anyway, the source of my wanting to make this video is the Cretin's video called Regulations for Brake Lights Haven't Caught Up to the EV Era. And as I read through the comments, these comments that I'm blocked from and can't make a comment myself, I read that most of the non-thinking commenters don't twig to the idea that what he's getting at is all very frivolous, in fact, moot. There is no need for regenerative brakes or regenerative retardation of EVs to apply brake lights. And I say this because there are a few astute people in the comments that actually give a reason why. For decades and decades, manual cars have been braking quite rapidly without using the brakes, as they throw each car back through the gears. So if you want to slow down quicker, knock it back another gear. You want to go even quicker again, knock it back one more again. And your braking is rather severe. And it can be, as you go through the gears, even more severe than the capabilities that regenerative brakes have. So what has happened in all this time? Why haven't regulators made cars to apply brake lights to people doing this with their manual cars? The reason is because the general populace are astute enough as drivers to notice any retardation in front of them without brake lights on them. It's just, if you're going to drive, you need to be spatially aware, sufficient to see these things going on in front of you and not running into the back of them. Unfortunately, people are getting pretty lame in their awareness. People are as thick as thieves, basically. We're as the rising generations keep coming, they're getting dumber and dumber. And so, in one way, the cretin does have a point. Maybe we do need brake lights to go on for every little time something slows down. Maybe we will get to a point where people are so stupid that if a car is going up an incline and he takes his foot off the pedal, the driver, then the brake lights will have to come on because the gravity has had an effect and the dumb people behind are not spatially aware enough to know what's going on. They will drive into the back of a car that's slowed down on a hill. In any case, what I've pointed out is that there are only a couple of astute people that recognise that there is nothing to worry about. And before I go on to an idea that's not mine, but I just love the idea, and it's an idea that came many decades after this was introduced, and I'll tell you what it is in a minute. I just want to say that while nothing is happening at Aptera, this is what has happened in general. And I'm not specific because I'm just talking right off the top of my head. I think more than a month ago, NBC test drove a Gamma prototype, and it, on a slight slope, overheated. And they came out with the excuse that the hoses to the motors were not attached. Now, hoses, any hoses, coolant hoses, are usually attached by just clips. And so if Gamma was 80% built as they claimed, the attachment on the motor and the attachment on the coolant system inside would have to, at least on the cooling system inside, would have to have been closed off by something. But in any case, take the plug out and you can put the hose on with clips in about a couple of minutes. So in a couple of minutes on either side, they could have attached the hoses. This is a month ago or more. I'm not sure of the dates. So if they could do that, they should have, the very next day, proven that Gamma could operate without overheating the motors. It took them weeks. And then they come out with a fake video where we see about 300 metres of what they claim is 6.5 kilometres of driving up and down a hill. We see about 300 metres of it, and it's been faked. I don't believe Gamma can still drive in a manner where they don't overheat at the drop of a hat. It's still hard for me to think on the go. I'm not reading a thing. I'm just thinking. Now, we have a month ago that event, and since then we get a fake video weeks later, and we, from then on, get all these promised events cancelled just because a BMW backed into a wheel pant on an Aptera. Wheel pants are supposed to be able to be taken on and off very quickly so that you can change a tyre. They've told us that. They're on and off easily. Change a tyre, just get the wheel pants off in a minute or two. Change the tyre, put the wheel pant back on, and you're on your way. Now, they weren't far out from Carlsbad to go to a tennis event. The wheel pant gets broken. So why didn't they just unbolt the remaining part of the pant and just get a car to bring out another wheel pant, bolt it on, and they might be half an hour to an hour late for the event. Reschedule everybody who's waiting for the joyride, and then they meet their obligations that they've set up, and they can, in the days after that, keep going with all their events calendar. What has happened since that, what I think is a scam, the setup that they somehow are damaged, and so all events have been cancelled for more than a week now. What happened is that they've just cancelled all events. That's it, nothing left. I think there's more to it, and I think there's, there's a, how can I can't think of a term to say. I, I think there's something nefarious going on. But anyway, all you gullible fanboys, you back the snake oil salesman to the hilt. You thought nothing of a radiator on a on a prototype, and now you're saying you can have a radiator under the windshield wipers, and it's going to work. You'll swallow anything. Okay, so I'm sure you're all going to swallow this nonsense as well. But that's what's happened. While nothing's happening, people are wanting to get referral codes and think that they're on their way to getting $1,000 every time somebody orders a silly trike. They're still trying to spit out any sort of nonsense they can to do that. And they're all blocking me. There was another one that I found out who's blocked me, and it's the weekly accelerator program update. This guy is trying to say that you're getting close to $30 million of the $50 million they need to get into production. And I wrote and said, no, you're getting nowhere. Not even the $20 million that you put up there saying you're on your way. You're nowhere, because your burn rate, Aptera's burn rate that is faster than the collection rate. So of that $20 million, it's already spent and some more. Going a bit backwards while they're trying to figure out how to hide the money that they've accrued over the last 4 years. They're looking for ways to hide it because they're not looking to produce. They're looking to do the same as they did last time. Have no viable product, not prove a thing, and then fold. It's what's called a Ponzi scheme, and I was suspicious of it the very first time I saw an Aptera video just over 2 years ago. I was suspicious of it, and as the months went by, it just looked more and more like it was a Ponzi scheme. People need to know that that's a possibility. I'm not saying it is, but it's a distinct possibility. Just like people say, I'm not a financial advisor, so you take this as entertainment. I'm saying I'm not an expert in Ponzi schemes, so just take it as entertainment, but use your head. Give it some consideration. You are just going to lose your money. And at the moment, if you're getting nowhere towards the $50 million needed to go to production, if that's the reality, it's almost a done deal that you will lose your money. The accelerator program is going backwards. It is not getting $20 million towards production. Not at all. And I don't believe after Aptera 1 that any big investor is going to make the same mistake that Google and those other big investors made, because they lost a lot of money. Their shareholders lost a lot of money. The value of their shares went down, and they should have gone up. Okay, so that's enough about Aptera while nothing's happening. Them doing nothing and coming up with these stunts is just wasting time while they find out ways to make money disappear. And it's good that they've got overseas suppliers, because by being overseas, it's a little easier for them. Anyway, that's my entertainment on that level. Now, what gave me the idea, and it's not my idea, it's an idea that's I can only pinpoint to in the last 5 years, me seeing it, is an interesting one. And what gave me the idea is this video all about regulations for brake lights, having not caught up with the EV era. People that said, well, we'll start with the cretin. The cretin has turned around and said, I've noticed this and this should be taken care of. We need EVs to have brake lights on when regenerative braking is applied, and that is when the motor is used to retard the vehicle instead of brakes. It's like it's new, but it isn't. There are a couple of astute people that go, well, people have been going back through the gears and that slows down the car more than what regenerative braking is capable of. If you knock it back from fourth to third, and then again from third to second, and then again from second to first, you can bring that car to a halt very rapidly without touching the brake pedal, without any brake lights going on. The only thing is, the reason nobody's bothered with regulating this, having brake lights go on as gears are used in the reverse order, the reason why nobody has done that is because people are, how can I say it, just aware of the cars in front, aware of the car without having to see a light. They can tell when a car's going slower and they can slow down, and they don't have to see a light go on to respond to a car slowing down. If you take it to extremes, why didn't the regulators turn around and say, well, if they're going up a steep hill and gravity slows down the car because the person has taken his foot off the brake, foot off the accelerator, cars behind need to see a brake light. They don't need to see a brake light. They're smart enough to know that a guy's taken his foot off the accelerator and the hill has accentuated the deceleration. It's making a mountain out of a molehill. It's pandering to people that have got dumber and dumber as they drive. And the generations are getting dumber and dumber in general, in all aspects. So we're getting videos about nonsense now. Other nonsense that's not Aptera related, and they link it to Aptera. So I'll finish with this idea that I had, and it make you realise that even things go wrong in a big way where you least expect it. When cities started to realise that real estate was expensive and decided they needed a network of trains for the population, they went underground to save money. That sounded like a good idea, but the problem was they went completely underground and included the stations underground as well, which meant on two levels it was more expensive on a daily basis. There was the added expense of providing air, not only to cool or heat air underground for everybody that were waiting for trains or getting off trains. The expense of the air, plus the expense of the light, plus the expense, in a lot of cases, the escalators and the elevators that were involved, all of these expenses to service the people that were using the underground trains was an ongoing expense. That was one thing. The expense of the station underground was ongoing and relatively expensive. If they'd have just paid for land, it would have been a one-off expense. But paying for land from station to station, being a long distance in all of these networks of stations, was too much of an expense. The other high expense was trains had to use a lot of energy, which is cost, to slow down, and then to go again once they've dropped off and picked up passengers, a lot of energy to get back up to speed to get between stations. Had they just put the distance between stations underground, they would have saved a lot of money. And by saving a lot of money, the cost of tickets would have been lower and saved money for the population that used the network. As a train leaves the station, it takes energy to start it off, but once some of the train goes down the slope to get back underground, it will drag the train to a higher speed, and so there's less energy used in just maintaining the speed they want to go between stations. The drop off the above ground station assists and makes it cheaper to get the train up to speed. As the train wants to stop at the next station, it doesn't have to use all that energy to stop it. It just starts to go up the hill and gravity stops it. Gravity starts it going down, gravity stops it going up, and there's less energy used. Now, add to that the less energy for having normal air, because you just have to have lots of ventilation at the station. It can be in the open. You can even put skyscrapers above it and still be in the open. You can own the property at the station itself, and the skyscraper itself can make more money for the railway network. Every skyscraper above a station is making money. You're not providing escalators and elevators and light. You can use natural daylight for most of the time. So your costs are lower to operate the station. Your costs are lower to operate the trains. And overall, you can provide cheaper tickets and spend less money long term. So there you go. This is to show you that, yes, a network of subway systems is a good idea, but to keep the station down with the uh, web of lines that you need is a bad idea, you see, and it's not fully thought out. And there's been city after city that have developed. I think it was it might have been London, or that was the first to build a subway system. But over the many decades later, newer cities have built subway systems and all made the same mistake. Put it all underground. They only needed to put underground the major distance between stations. They should have kept the stations above ground. So don't think that as a world, don't think that we always implement the best ideas, and we can actually do the silly things for decades and decades without learning. There is more to intelligence than repeating the same mistake over and over again. Just thought I'd say that while nothing's happening at Aptera, I don't believe Aptera has any new idea that is workable, but that remains to be seen. Looking forward to how it pans out. Until then, bye for now. Stay safe.